I'm happy to welcome everyone to Business Central and CoPilot together at last. I'm joined today by Kim Congleton, and we are going to be taking a look and demoing some of the functional areas in Business Central where we may have seen the CoPilot options, as well as how those options can potentially make our work a little bit easier or more automated. These are the main areas of the system that we will be taking a look at CoPilot. Some of these may look familiar to you, as you may have seen the CoPilot option as you've been going about your daily tasks, navigating through Business Central. We also were curious about a lot of these options, and that's what prompted us to put together this session. Looking at using CoPilot with sales documents, there is one specific button that I wanted to explore, and that is the option to suggest sales lines. Here I am on a new sales order for School of Fine Art, and if I look at my lines under Manage, I have Suggest Sales Lines, and this is a new CoPilot option. If I click on that, I get prompted to describe the items and quantities or to refer to existing documents to copy from. So this takes the place of maybe a copy document or looking at past orders or maybe using recurring sales lines. If I look down here as well, I can see that there's a prompt guide and it will instruct me how I can start my prompts. So if I'm copying line items, I can instruct it to copy from the last invoice, from order number XYZ, or a certain invoice number. I can also prompt it with adding certain line items. Under matching, we have different structure around the matching. So we can have it be permissive, which means it's the most flexible, balanced, which is kind of in the middle, or a precise match, which is the most exact. We can also view the lines only or the lines in confidence, and I'll talk a little bit more about this after I complete my prompt. My prompt is going to be to copy the last order for this customer. And I'll go ahead and I'll generate those lines and we'll see what we come back with. I can see that I'm getting 3 suggested sales lines, and I do know, in fact, that one of my ongoing sales orders, the most recent one, has these 3 items on it with these quantities. So I do know that this was an effective use of the CoPilot to suggest copying lines from the last order. If I use my different matching options, for example, if I click on permissive and regenerate, I don't get any changes. So because this is copying from the last order, I think that's why I'm not getting anything different. The same thing happens if I use precise and then generate the lines. I get the same exact thing. Right now I'm viewing by lines and confidence, but I'm not seeing any sort of confidence level indicated. So I'll go ahead and view lines only and generate this. Now, if these are the lines that I'd like to add to my sales order, I can click to insert them, and this will add those lines accordingly. So this is one practical use of the CoPilot for suggest sales lines. For this example, I'm actually going to refer to items and quantities. I remember that the customer called and said they wanted 3 of the Athens item. I don't remember if it was a desk. I don't remember if it was a chair, but I'm going to try it this way and see what the system comes up with. And I remember they mentioned they wanted 1 of the Rome item. Again, I don't remember exactly what it was. So I'm just going to go with this prompt. I'm going to leave my matching as balanced and my view as lines only, and I'll go ahead and generate those lines. And I can see that the suggested sales lines are 3 Athens desks and 1 Rome guest chair in green. So it looks like the system did a pretty good job of identifying, just based on my very short description, what items this customer wanted. So I could go ahead and I could insert those lines on my sales order. Another area that CoPilot has been introduced is with our bank account reconciliations. You may have noticed that on your action bar, you now have the option to reconcile with CoPilot. So let's see how this works. I'm here on my bank account reconciliation, and I've already imported my bank statement lines. Normally what I would do at this point to continue with my bank reconciliation is go to the Match Automatically option, and I would specify my date tolerance. So I'll go ahead and I'll put 10 days. And I can see that 4 of 9 lines from my statement were matched. If I look, I can see that it looks like we do have some matches of exact amounts that did not get matched. And that is most likely because I said the date tolerance was 10 days and the bank statement line transaction was 5/16, but the bank account ledger was 1/18. So the system would not have matched those. I can also see on 5/27 on our bank statement, we had an outgoing payment of $16,115.23. And I know that that's the total of these 2 lines over here on my bank account ledger entries. And even though that's within the date tolerance, that also did not get matched. So Business Central is looking for a match basically just between the date and date tolerance as well as the amount. And it's looking for that one-to-one match. I'm going to do the match automatically function again, and this time I will specify a date tolerance of 365 days. And it's asking me if I want to overwrite the existing matches. I will click yes. And this time I can see that 6 of the 9 reconciliation lines are matched. So it did find those matches between the January transactions that cleared in May, but it did not find a match for the transactions like this one where 2 lines on my bank ledger equal 1 line on the bank statement line. I can also see that we have an analysis fee that probably has not been booked on our bank account ledger entries in Business Central. If I look up here to this 518 transaction, I can see that that also was the sum of the 2 transactions over here on the right. So even though the date tolerance was within the range that I specified, it's not finding a match because it's not a one-to-one, it's a multiple-to-one. I've removed all of my matches and I'm going to start fresh. And this time I will use the Reconcile with CoPilot option, which I can find under Matching or under Home. Here I can see 3 of 9 lines were auto-matched. And if I click those, I can see the matches here. If I return to this screen, I can see that CoPilot matched 5 of 9 lines. So in total, we should have 8 of our 9 lines matched. I can come down here and I can review the match proposals and I can either choose to keep them or discard them. So here I can see the bank statement entry as well as what it was applied to. So that May entry on our bank statement was applied to that January payment. If I look at this one, this actually says it applied to multiple entries. And I can see that it's matching it with those 2 deposits of $54.87.80 that were on the same day. Additionally, I can see the outgoing payment applies to multiple entries, and it is the sum of those 2 payments. Based on this, it seems like the matching with CoPilot will take into consideration those multiple-to-one matches, whereas the automatic matching does not do that. Now, I will say I did not test this the other way around of multiple bank statement lines to 1 bank account ledger entry. I'll choose to keep these matches, so I can click on keep it, and I can see that I do still have a difference for my analysis fee that has not been posted to my Business Central GL. Originally, when I saw this post difference to GL account CoPilot option, I thought that I could use that for a line for analysis fees that hadn't been posted yet. But if I click on post difference to GL account, what this function actually wants to do is look for differences between what's being matched and post that difference to a GL account. What I can do with my analysis fee line is I can use this option to transfer to a general journal, and using base functionality, I could transfer this to a journal entry to be able to more easily populate and post that entry. So I can see this is auto-populating with the date as well as just some basic information. And I would just need to simply fill in my GL account and any additional information. Making sure to be using a bank account balance account type, that line would pull into my bank ledger entries and would be automatically matched. Overall, my opinion on this is that I do like the ability for CoPilot to match multiple lines to 1, and I do think this is an improvement over the auto match functionality of Business Central. However, I do still think that the usability of this feature is a little bit funky and tedious, and I would like to see some improvements as we move forward with this. CoPilot can also help us analyze data in a list. In many screens, we have the option to enter analyze mode, and there also is a CoPilot dropdown to give us the option to analyze the list using CoPilot and prompts. For this example, I'm on my vendor ledger entries, and I see the little CoPilot icon up here. So if I click on that, I can go to the Analyze List. If I click on the Show in Page, that will just give me the option within the page to be able to analyze the list from there. In the Analyze Vendor Entries, I can see that I can describe the field layout that I would like, but I can also look at a prompt guide. So we can add a structure by grouping, showing, or pivoting on certain fields. We can sort and filter, or we can have CoPilot help us with adjusting the layout of the screen. I am going to add a filter. I've typed in filter by amounts greater than 10K, and I am going to generate that data. I can see that my prompt is still at the bottom, and I can further add details about the analysis as well. What I could do is I could further drill down into this detail because I can see the description doesn't necessarily always tell me what it is. So let's drill down into this $14,895, and I can see that that is actually a payment from the vendor. From here, I can create a new analysis tab with CoPilot as well. For this prompt, I will ask the system and CoPilot to Show me all payments over 5K for vendor nod publishers in 2024. So this is getting much more specific. So let's go ahead and generate this and see what we come back with. All right, so I can see that I have 3 results returned. I can see that I have my vendor name, amount, and posting date. So this posting date is a field that we didn't have on the previous analysis because in this one, we specified that we only wanted payments in 2024. I can see it's just for nod publishers. I can see everything is over $5,000 and within 2024. Let's just go ahead and drill into one of these and make sure that the other detail matches up. I can see that this is in fact a payment, and it looks like this filter has correctly applied everything in our analysis mode.
Let's take a look at some of the other things that we can do with CoPilot and BC, and let's look at an item and see what else we can do there. So from an item, one of the things that someone might need to do is to create a new stock keeping unit. So one of the prompts that we could use is, how do I create a new SKU? What it brings back is the instructions on how to create a SKU. So let's go ahead and go into BC and let's see what else we can do with the item. In BC, from the item or the item list, here's an example of some of the prompts that we can use in CoPilot. And again, the first one I did is, how do I create a stock keeping unit? Here we can see to create a stock keeping unit in Business Central, it gives us the steps. And if we just kind of quickly look at those steps, those look pretty good. Those are pretty accurate for what you have to do to create a new stock keeping unit. Also, again, gives us the reference, and here you can see it says set up stock keeping units, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know why it keeps taking me to the bottom of the page, but here you can see it's an article from learn.microsoft.com. Then the next thing that I might want to do is actually understand, well, why would I actually use a stock keeping unit? Believe it or not, I get asked this question a lot. So this is a pretty decent explanation of why you might want to use it. So here, if we kind of drill in, it kind of comes down and boils down to, it's going to enable you to add different details about an item for a specific location, such as warehouse or distribution center, or other variants, which is a pretty decent explanation. I mean, you could go into a lot more detail, but I'd say that's a decent, like 10,000 foot, level overview. And again, it's going to give you the article that matches some of that information. Then the last one I did, and this one I'm still kind of playing around with some of the, what can I find? What can I find in the data, and what can I make CoPilot dig out for me versus what I have to actually go and look. So here, you can see I asked it, how many items have a quantity on hand of over 25? So it went out, looked around, came back, and said there's 16 items with a quantity on hand of over 25. Here's some examples of those items, and you can view more items on this item page. So let's go ahead and click on this and see what it does. And essentially, yep, it brought back a list. Now, is it 16? That's a great question. I'm not going to count it. It looks close. And then what we can see here is that it did go out, set a filter for 25, which is what I would have had to do on my own. So that's a pretty decent prompt that brought me back the information I needed pretty quickly without me having to go out and do this. Now we're going to talk a little bit about CoPilot in chat. And what we mean by that is when you go into Business Central, you'll notice there's an icon for CoPilot at the top. Click on that. And when we do, it's going to open a window for CoPilot. And here you'll see that this is a window that opens next to Business Central. It looks like a little bit of a chat window inside of Business Central. It's got a place for us to enter our prompts. and some examples of prompts that you can use. So you can see here that we have find, explain, and guide. These are probably 80% of the prompts that you need when you're new to CoPilot and new to using it. Find is going to let you look up information. Explain is going to help you understand it. And guide is going to help you with how do I do something. Explain and guide are pretty useful prompts for somebody new to BC and new to CoPilot. These are some prompts that you can use that will give you a lot of great information. When we look at CoPilot inside of BC, I'm going to use the customers here as an example, and we're going to look at a couple of prompts that you can do. And one of the first ones that I did is, how do I create a new customer? And you can see here, I did the prompt ahead of time. Just wanted to make sure it didn't take too long for the prompts to come back. So we can see here, it came back with some information on how to set up a new customer. And for the most part, that looks pretty accurate. We're going to see a little bit later an example where it might be just a little bit off. What it also does is brings you back a reference where it got some of that information from. And you can see here that it got it from adding an article from learn.microsoft.com on adding new customers. The next prompt I did was find which customer has the highest balance. Now, obviously I'm using a Kronos database, so I don't have too many customers in here, but this might be one thing that you want to look up or want to know, and you might have hundreds of or thousands of customers, and this might be a useful prompt. So you can see here, it brings back my customer with the highest balance is a School of Fine Art. It'll even let me go right to that customer. So whether I was on the list of customers or not, if I was on my homepage and asked this question, then it would take me right to the customer. And then here too, it's got some references that you can look at, which is really the list of customers on this one. Then the last prompt that I did was I asked it to explain the difference between a ship to and a bill to address for a customer. And you can see I spelled it wrong, and I wanted to see if it could make that interpretation for me, which it did. So it wasn't great on the information that it brought back to me. It brought me back 3 articles to choose from to read, and it kind of gives you a preview of the pieces of information on those pages of what it was looking at. So here you can see it's got some information. If I just kind of hover over the article, it'll kind of show me a little bit of a preview, and then you can read that and make a determination on whether that is something that you want to go look at. So that one, not so great. That one, you know, it's kind of, I probably left it too broad for the prompt, and I probably need to narrow that down, add more detail in there, and ask it a better question. Now, the thing that you can do as well is give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So really that didn't really answer my question. So I could give it a thumbs down, and I could say, I could choose from any of these items. I'm going to just say other, and I'm going to submit. Because it wasn't really inaccurate, it just didn't give me what I was looking for. And that may be on me. Let's take a look at the requisition worksheet. And the reason I want to look at this one is it's a good example of how the prompts are important, and sometimes how you have to adjust the prompts to get it to bring back the information that you're really looking for, and how it might bring back something that technically is not incorrect, but it's not really the process that you're trying to use. So let's go ahead and go into BC and take a look at that. In BC, I'm in the requisition worksheet, got my CoPilot open, and here we can see one of the prompts that I did first was, how do I use the requisition worksheet to create purchase orders? Pretty generic. What I was looking for was for it to come back and tell me to go to home, go to calculate plan, enter some filters, enter my starting date, ending date, enter any item filters, run it, and then work with whatever comes back and carry out action messages or not. So I was kind of looking for something along those lines. What I got back was open the requisition worksheet and choose drop shipments. Well, maybe I don't have any drop shipments. So while that's not wrong, this, you can absolutely do that, get your any purchase orders you need to create for drop shipments and run that and generate your purchase orders. That's not wrong. So then I tried to refine it a little bit and say, okay, how do I use the requisition worksheet, create purchase orders that are not drop ship or special orders? Because I was assuming that what it would go to next is special orders. So then I go ahead and enter that, and it puts a couple of things in front of where I think my first step should be. So this one's fine. Open the requisition worksheet by searching for it, enter the items manually in the worksheet, and then fill in the relevant fields, and then use calculate plan. Well, you can do it that way. Not a lot of people use it that way. So it's, again, not wrong. You could totally do it that way. So then I just got super specific just to be curious about what it would come back with. And then it does come back with my steps, right, that I was looking for. It's, again, one of those things where you'll, maybe enter a prompt, doesn't quite get you to what you want, but if you refine that prompt a little bit, it will eventually bring back what you're looking for. It's not a huge, kind of, I think, just depends on the area that you're in and what you're prompting for. I feel like some of the other areas maybe have been a little bit more focused on because they're part of that core program, like finance, some of those types of things. Those are pretty cut and dried. Everybody uses it. Those make the most sense to kind of focus on. Some of these other areas that maybe not everybody uses, some of those prompts need a little bit of work. Now let's take a look at Power Automate and workflows and BC or CoPilot. So one of the things that we can do is create flows, Power Automate flows from within BC. We're going to take a look at a couple of things that we can do with CoPilot and see how that helps us create those Power Automate workflows. One of the things that we can do is I can just go in here, CoPilot, ask it, how do I create a Power Automate to notify me in Teams when a customer is blocked? Just going to use a pretty generic and easy one to start with. And you can see I asked CoPilot that inside of BC, and it came back with 3 resources that might help me. So it's not going to give me step-by-step inside BC, but it is going to give me a place to start. So let's just go through that and we'll actually see it in BC, and then we'll also take a look at CoPilot in Power Automate. So here we are in BC. We can see here I've got a prompt. I'm working from the customer card. How do I create a Power Automate to notify me in Teams when a customer is blocked in Business Central? Again, it found these resources, and it's 3 resources. They're not great, but it would get me there eventually. I don't necessarily want to create it from scratch if there's already a template. So they're okay. It gets me about 80% of the way there. I also asked it to explain how Power Automate can send a notification to a Teams channel when a customer is blocked. Found some resources, not exactly the one that I want, but again, kind of gets me started. Now the other thing that I can do is come up here, go to Power Automate. I can go to Power Automate, and you can see right from here inside Business Central, I can initiate as long as I have permission and your Business Central is set up to allow you to do this. I can, from here, create an approval flow, create an automated flow, create an action-based on a flow, manage flows, all of those types of things. What I'm going to do is go ahead and create an automated flow. So right here in Business Central, it's going to open the window for me, and it's going to make some suggestions. Now I could search, or I can just kind of see what it brought back, and let's see if it's filtered the list and brought me back something that I want to do. And so you'll notice that right here, the first one is the one that I'm looking for. I want to be notified on Teams when a customer is blocked in Business Central. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this pretty much will walk me through what I need to do. I know I already have one out here, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it's version 2. You can see here, it's pretty much just like a wizard. It's showing that I have a connection to Business Central and to Teams. So all of that is set up. And then I can select here. It's going to ask me to select the team that I want to post the update to. And I know I have a team out here called Acme Co. And then also what's the channel that I want to post it to. So here I can just go ahead and I'm just going to put it in the general channel for right now. And I can go ahead and create this flow. Once I click on create, it says the workflow is added successfully and it's been saved and it's ready to use. Now, one of the things I can do is go here where I can manage my workflow in Power Automate. And this is where once this opens, I can see my flow here and I can edit from here, and here's where I see CoPilot again. So now I can use CoPilot within Power Automate. And this is super helpful, so I can come in here and again, up at the top, it gives you some examples of what you can do. You can add an action that sends an email, explain what an action does, add a condition. So let's see, I could add an action that sends an email. How do I add an action to send, and oh, I can really spell today. And then it's going to go out. It's going to let me know these are the things that I need to do. I can remove this trigger. I can update these actions. I can add the action, add this action and this trigger. So these are the things that I need to add. So it does a pretty decent job of suggesting and making changes to see what I need to do. So you can see once I do that, it kind of has a trouble with this first trigger. So it's not perfect. Like I could play with this and get it back to where it needs to be, but right now we're not going to do that. But you can see you can use it. It does give you some of the information that you need to be able to change this or modify this flow, but it's not perfect. So let's just go out here, and what we're going to do is I have another one that's already running. So I'm going to turn this one off, and then let's go run the one that I had earlier that's out here. So I'm going to go back to customers, and I'm going to block this customer. Let's go pick a different one, and I'm going to block this customer right here. And so now if I go to my teams here, and I go to my Acme and I go to my general, you can see here, this customer I just blocked, and I got a notification, and you can see it tells me this customer is now blocked, all the details, so I know which one it is. So that's a little bit of how to use Power Automate with CoPilot.
Wow, you guys, that was a lot. So many great examples and a nice progression with all of that. Um, I don't even know where to begin. What are your favorites here that really were the ones that you were super excited to show, other than all of it?
Wow.
Kim, you can start.
I do like some of that analytical stuff, being able to ask questions and see what it can find. I feel like the financial stuff, I feel like is more baked, it's more fully baked. So it's going to be interesting to see how it comes more into play in some of the other areas. But yeah, I don't know. I like them all.
Yeah. What about you, Carrie?
Well, I really like the Power Automate one because speaking for myself, I don't know the first place to start with building a Power Automate flow. So I do like that. I think that makes it more accessible as a user. As far as CoPilot in general, I know we've been hearing so much about it lately. And a lot of the videos I see, it's like, oh, you can do this cool thing and this cool thing. So what we really wanted to do was let's actually test some of this out and see if we can share with our users how to use it at a practical level. And I think what I'm kind of finding is that throughout my testing of this, I do think it is important, like Kim said, the prompts need to be fine-tuned because we have to remember we're still the pilot and this is our co-pilot. So it's important what instruction we're giving. And I do think when we kind of fine-tune that, it gives us the results we want. I think for me, though, still in the back of my mind is I always need to verify that things are correct until I have that trust. So in the current state, the bank rec I think is pretty cool. I haven't started using it for ours yet, just because it's like I just don't have that 100% like, oh, this is going to make my life easier. It's going to match things for me. So there's still that, tiny bit of doubt in my mind of if it really will save me that time, because to start, I'm going to go back and verify anyway. But I'm really excited for the future of what that looks like in Business Central.
Yep. Yeah, I think the thing that impressed me the most the first time I saw that and now is just how much potential the natural language use has. I know that for people who are coming from other systems to Business Central, one of the things that they struggle with is what's the right terminology? What's the right word or phrase to use to find something? So even though Microsoft has done a great job investing in search and really improved that, um, pairing that with Copilot to be able to find things in the system and figure out how to use things, absolutely phenomenal with how much that expands the possibility to say, I know this thing this one way, or it has a similar term and have it find the other, where you don't have to have things exact or even, terribly close. So there's definitely a learning curve there, but I think that that's got some great potential for new users in particular too. Be able to find things easier when they first start using the system. All right, any questions from those who are watching? Things that you would like our speakers to expand on?
Also, if anyone here has used any of these features or others, I'm curious your feedback. So put that in chat, because it's always nice to hear what other users are experiencing.
Yeah, I'm very impressed at all of the new information that's coming out about Copilot. I know that it felt like Copilot kind of appeared suddenly, and suddenly we were talking about it all the time, but it wasn't quite, you know, people hadn't adopted it yet. People hadn't started using it on a practical level. So I'm very excited to see that wave of adoption start to happen as people figure out what does and what doesn't work with what's effective and how people actually apply it. All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed our little vision of the future there and some starting steps into Copilot and what we can be doing today and building the foundation for the future.